This flight almost ended 10 minutes before we were landing at our home airport. We were flying back home from Las Vegas Airport back to Centennial, Colorado. We were north of Springs, and we inadvertently went into a cloud flying IMC at night. We were trying to descend to get out of the clouds, but luckily something caught my ear and told me not to. Before we dive into what happened and how I avoided it, if you click the link in the description and join, I will give you lifetime access to my paid Skool community completely for free. Inside, you will find 5 weeks worth of knowledge that I have learned throughout my 6 years of being in the aviation industry. All of the things that you aren't necessarily taught in school or through flight training, I give you for free. This is only going to be for a limited time, so take action today. Click the link in the description, and I will see you guys there. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pilot Accelerator Academy YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about a time that I accidentally went IMC as a private pilot. This trip in particular, we were coming back from North Las Vegas Airport. This route that I have highlighted is the normal route that we would take during this cross country particularly. This was a fairly common cross country that we would do, especially during COVID, just to build some time on the weekends or whenever we had extra days off from work and we just wanted to fly and build hours. We would go from Centennial, east of Springs, to Pueblo to Las Vegas to St. John's, and then cut all the way up to North Las Vegas Airport. Stay there a couple days. The next day we'd most likely fly out of North Las Vegas into California and fly around California and explore, and then just come right back, spend the night, and then the very next day we'd go right back home. This particular trip, we couldn't take this route because there was a bunch of weather all along this area, just anywhere north of Phoenix and south of Colorado City, Bryce Canyon, St. George. Like, this whole area was just full of little pop-up thunderstorms. So we had taken the decision, we'd made the decision to, instead of going our normal route, we would fly south towards like Bullhead City and like Havasu, cut north of Phoenix just inside their airspace, and then we'd cut back up towards St. John's and then could pick back up from there. Really just because this whole area around the Grand Canyon was getting a bunch of pop-up thunderstorms, couldn't really navigate around it. We were initially trying to, but when we were decided in the air, we were going to have to go south and north of Phoenix. Mind you, throughout this entire flight, we were on flight following. So if you don't know what flight following is, it's kind of like being on an IFR flight plan, but flying VFR. So you're under VFR rules, but you're always in contact with ATC. You're squawking a certain squawk code for ATC to identify you. They'll notify you of any traffic. They'll give you vectors if you need them, things like that. So it's basically like being on an IFR flight plan, but you're flying VFR, and you have the added protection of, instead of not talking to anyone and nobody knowing that you're out there, you're talking to ATC, and they know exactly where you're at, which was great for this scenario for this flight, because like I said, just thunderstorms everywhere, including in Phoenix. Like, all of Phoenix was under this massive cloud layer. But we knew we would be able to make it home. We really wanted to get home. We didn't need to get home, but we just wanted to get home. Hint, hint. So for this trip, we ended up, like I said, going towards Lake Havasu, north of Phoenix, St. John's, stopped there, got fuel, took right off again. Ended up getting to Pueblo, stopped in Pueblo, got some fuel again. We were on the last leg home to Centennial Airport. And at this point, we have been flying for close to 5-6 hours up to this point. So we've been flying all day, dodging thunderstorms, talking to ATC, nonstop flying for 5-6 hours. We're getting tired. We're on the last leg home. We really want to get home. But there's a bit of an issue. There is also thunderstorms or weather, not necessarily thunderstorms, but there was weather in Colorado. And it's usually always in this area right here, just in between the Bravo and the Charlie for Springs and Denver. And it's usually because the altitude here is it's a lot higher than what it is in Springs and in Denver or Centennial. So there's a lot of really bad weather here sometimes. And we knew there was going to be weather, but we didn't know what it was exactly because all we had was ForeFlight. We were trying to talk to ATC, but they didn't really necessarily know what it was either. So we decided to just go for it. We took off out of Centennial to avoid the Charlie here. Even though we were on flight following, to avoid the Charlie, we usually fly east of the Charlie airspace here and then cut straight into Centennial. I'm flying this leg back home from Pueblo, and right about the time we get to exactly this point right here, I inadvertently went IMC. We flew right into a big cloud, and we were flying. It was nighttime, couldn't see it. We thought it was just black sky, but we had the lights on for the plane, and once we got in it, I looked out the window and saw what I thought was like snow going past, or at least rain for sure, rain going past our light. And so it was illuminating all those particles, and I was able to see it. First problem was that we went IMC. We identified that and started trying to get out of it. So we did a U-turn, tried flying backwards, or not backwards, but we tried turning around to go back to Springs to stay the night. But the problem was that this weather was kind of doing like a bit of a U shape. So it was starting to cut along the path that we needed to be, and it was starting to cut into like this north part of Springs. So, and it was moving east. So right as soon as we did that U-turn, we ended up cutting the bottom end. We ended up getting it right back into IMC on the bottom end of the cloud here. So we kind of had no choice. And again, we're with flight following, with Springs approach. We kind of had no choice at this point because we're not IFR rated. We can't pick up an IFR flight plan in the air. We're not IFR rated, but we were in the process of studying for IFR and doing IFR procedures and flight training, things like that. So we knew the basic maneuvers and instruments of flying IFR. So our only option really right about this point, once we got into IMC again, was to descend. Again, we're with flight following, so we're telling Springs approach what we're doing. We're going to have to descend. We're descending, and at this point, we're flying towards Lyman. We're continuing on to go to Centennial instead of turning around to Springs, even though I kind of knew that was like the best decision to do. We were still going to go to Centennial. So we were descending and trying to follow this road going towards Lyman. And then our plan was to go towards Lyman and cut in between, like just north of all this weather, because it's usually just in this spot right here. So we're trying to follow this trying to follow this road towards Lyman, and then we'd cut north into Centennial. But as we're descending, the cloud is getting closer and closer to the ground, which is also forcing us to get lower and lower and lower. And I hear through my Bose headsets, my Bose A20s, I like listening to music when I was flying VFR. Not necessarily during this time because we were nighttime accidental IMC, so I wasn't listening to music, but I still had my phone connected to my A20s and ForeFlight. ForeFlight and Bluetooth on the A20s, I truly believe saved her life. If you don't know, ForeFlight, when you get low enough to the ground, it'll give you altitude warnings, just like they do in the A320s and the 737s. Once we got to 1,000 feet, it gave off 1,000-foot warning, saying it was just like the Siri voice saying 1,000 feet. And then I heard it again at 500, and that's 500 AGL. So I heard through the headset again, 500. And I ended up looking over at my dad and telling him, hey, I just heard 500 feet through my headset. I have to climb. I'm not getting any lower, especially night IMC, and it's forcing us to the ground. And if you could see, there's turbines, wind turbines, there's There are cities here, so there's some small cities with or small towns with buildings and stuff like that. There are obstacles. I'm not risking it. I have to climb. I was confident enough in my ability and my skills of where I was at in my IFR training that I would at least be able to climb straight ahead without banking or um, getting disoriented, anything like that. So I was confident in my ability to do it. So I put power in. I was glued to the instruments, making sure we were straight, not necessarily level, but straight and climbing. Um, we got so low, obviously 500 feet, but there are rolling hills around this area, east of Colorado Springs. We were in and out of comms with Colorado Springs approach. I don't remember exactly what altitude it was that we got to, but there was an altitude we got to, and we ended up finally hearing Colorado Springs approach very clearly, and we told them what was going on and that we needed vectors straight to Colorado Springs immediately. So he ended up giving us a vector. We're still completely IMC at this point. I do remember feeling spatial disorientation like quite a bit, but I just kept having to remind myself, follow the instrument, trust your instruments. For some reason, I knew we were climbing and straight, but it felt like we were at like a 30-degree bank and climbing. It felt so weird, but I just knew I had to trust the instruments. And so he gave us the vector. I fly the vector. We're straight and level at this point at a certain altitude. That Colorado Springs approach said that we were going to be good all the way to the airport. So we're at that altitude, flying the heading, and then just all of a sudden the cloud disappears and the entire city lights up right in front of us. So it's just like a giant awe of relief. We can see again. So at this point, we decided we're not going to try it again. We're not going back home. We're going to land in Springs, stay the night. We have family that's close by. We can either get picked up or just get a hotel and hop right back in the plane in the morning and go home. So that's what we opted to do. We ended up landing, debriefed. We talked through the whole thing. I don't know, obviously, other than having Get-There-Itis, there wasn't really anything that we could have done better. We did the best we could, and we stayed alive. And luckily, ForeFlight and my Bose A20s contributed to that for sure. If you're flying all day, 6 hours, and you're dodging thunderstorms, and you just really want to get home, you might want to identify that as Get-There-Itis. Get-There-Itis is easily one of the biggest pilot killers that there is. Be smart. Think if there's a big cloud of weather right in front of you and you're not quite sure what it is, approach doesn't know what it is, you should probably not try to go through it, especially at night in a single engine plane. Know the environment of where you're flying as well. Like I said, in Colorado, specifically in this area, there's usually a lot of weather in this particular spot. So knowing your environment, where you live, where you're flying, things like that. Also, trust your instruments. If you're in IFR training right now, or you have your IFR and you ever encounter IMC, incidentally, trust your instruments. It will save your life, and use all the available tools at your disposal. Like I said, we were flying at night, single engine, both private pilots working towards our IFR, so we don't have a ton of time. But I had Bluetooth for my headset connected to my phone, which ForeFlight was up the entire time, and I was watching. Luckily, ForeFlight does have those alerts. Truly believe that contributed to us still being alive. So yeah, Bluetooth with your phone. We had flight following the entire flight from Vegas all the way to Colorado Springs, where we ended up having to turn around and divert. We had flight following the entire time. Flight following is an amazing tool, like I said, it's like you're flying on an IFR flight plan without actually being IFR. So it's really, really useful to general aviation, flying VFR. Yeah, don't get there-itis. Don't get there-itis. That's no fun. I think that's it for the rest of this video. I hope you guys learned something. Don't go into IMC incidentally. Trust your gut, trust your instruments, and don't do what I did. I'll see you guys in the next video.